Hello YouTube, how's everyone doing? It's Professional here. Welcome back to my playthrough of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. So we're going to continue from where we left off here. We're going to continue Professor Hairbrayne's trial. We're going to see exactly where this is going to go, what's going on here. October 23rd, 10:44 a.m. The Old Bailey. Defendant's Antechamber. Mr. Naruhodo, what on earth were you playing at just now? Or rather, what on earth were you playing at all along? Well, you're the idiot who literally just gave the prosecution ammunition. He shouldn't have said that metal can't be transported across on his machine because he almost got the whole jury against him over that. My hypothesis, my amazing hypothesis. You've been picking holes in it from the start. Sorry about that. But you promised me. You said you'd prove that dratted explosion was an accident, not murder. You said you'd keep my precious invention from falling into anyone else's hands. But all you've done so far is try to undermine me. No, you've tried to undermine my progress. I've been defending you this entire time, and you've been making yourself look more guilty. Yes, I did make you a promise, you're right. I said that I'd believe in you and fight for your freedom to the very end. But I also told you I was no scientist. I don't understand your hypothesis. The fact is, there's an undeniable flaw in your logic, isn't there? But if I just run through some equations... Yes, you see, it's because my work is incomplete. Perhaps it is. Nevertheless, a man died as a consequence, didn't he? Oh. Oh no. You're right. You're so right. It's all my fault. And I have no right to blame you for my failures. I'm a disaster, not just a scientist, but as a human being. Well, that might be a little over the top. And while we're on the subject, well, what about Barrick? He's being awful. Claiming his old university friend to be a murderer, you mean? He's a disaster, not just as a prosecutor, but as a human being. Oh, but no, wait. He's the Reaper, isn't he? Perhaps he's not classified as Homo sapiens anymore. Glad that's cleared up. Can I double check something with you? Yes? What? The machine and demonstration you prepared. They were based entirely on your hypothesis, I presume. There was no trickery involved. I drew the plans for the machine with my very own hands. Every line was painstakingly drawn with the firm belief that science is the only future. So look, like I was saying in the previous part, I think that Professor Hairbrayne was getting scammed. Because he said he drew the plans, but he didn't construct the machine. That was Asman's engineer. So I think that Asman and his engineer were in on some type of scam to steal the research grant. That's at least what I think. So yes, it's true that my hypothesis hasn't reached maturity yet, but please, Mr. Naruhodo, you must believe in it. All right, Professor. I understand. Counsel, defendant. The prosecution's witnesses are ready to take the stand. Court is about to be in session again. Make your way into the courtroom, please. Okay, let's find out who these witnesses are. I'm really curious on this. It all hinges on that demonstration. If the professor's hypothesis is as sound as he claims, it leaves him as the only person who could possibly have killed the victim. But on the other hand, Mr. Sholmes was adamant. A practical implementation such as was attempted by the professor at the Great Exhibition is quite impossible. I don't think the machine was real, I think it was staged. So really, what should I be trying to prove here? Yes, exactly, this is getting confusing now. October 23rd, 11 a.m., the Old Bailey. Courtroom. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby reconvene the proceedings of this court. Counsels for the defense and prosecution, are you ready for the new witnesses to testify? The prosecution is ready, my lord. As is the defense, my lord. So, Lord Van Zeeks, I believe these next witnesses saw the demonstration on the day in question with their own eyes. Indeed, they did. And as luck would have it, one of them is a police detective. Oh no. So the testimony we're about to hear can be considered highly reliable. It's probably Gregson. Perfect. A detective of all people. The prosecution's stance remains unchanged. Though it ended in tragedy, the demonstration on the day in question was scientifically sound. And consequently, the sole person with the opportunity to have committed this act of murder is the only other individual to have been present on the stage at the time, the accused. I'm starting to think that the engineer might be responsible for the murder, because this engineer hasn't been brought in to testify. I want to bring him in to testify, because he's been mentioned a few times, but he's not, hasn't been brought in yet. Like I said in my previous part, I think that there was a wax figure involved, because again, that whole wax museum part, I don't think it's a coincidence that it's in this part. I think that there was a wax figure that made it look like it was Asman, and I think that was probably in the machine, and I think Asman was at the Crystal Tower the entire time. Thank you, counsel. The prosecution's position is clear. So, bring forth your witnesses now. Bailiff, show the witnesses in. The witnesses whose proximity to the incident on the day in question will clarify the truth unequivocally. These are the witnesses? Oh, and Gina's a witness too? Witnesses, state your names and occupations for the court to hear. My name is Balthazar Loon. So Gina, she is, an assistant to the detective now. She's learning to be a detective. I am the impresario of all hot air balloons in the vicinity of the Esperimento stage. My name is Wilhelm Gottsreich Sigismund Ormstein. Okay, we're just gonna call him Wilhelm. I'm not gonna say that whole name every time I'm reading it off. But these witnesses are getting more and more ridiculous each time. I've come to see the great exhibition all the way from my home in Bohemia. Bohemia, that is, I'm trying to remember right now. Bohemia, that is part of Czechoslovakia, correct? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure that's part of Czechoslovakia. That is in Central Europe. I think Bohemia might have been a country at one point, but I'm very rich. Okay, what is that supposed to mean? Inspector Gina Lestrade, Scotland Yard. I'm a great detective, even Erlock Sholmes agrees. I was on security duty at the exhibition, and I got to go up in one of them balloons. It was amazing. Gina, again. Well, this is gonna be ridiculous testimony now, but she did mention that she's seen the disaster from up in a balloon, actually, didn't she? And she clearly loved every minute of it. There were 3 balloons flying near the public experimentation stage when the incident occurred. 2 of these witnesses were in one such balloon at the time and saw events unfold from the skies above. You make it sound like they were in the clouds. It was only an altitude of circa 60 feet, very low. Well, you can't see nothing if you fly too high, can you? 60 feet. About 18 meters then. Thank you, for your introductions. Now you will give your formal testimony for the court. Kindly describe exactly what you witnessed, especially those of you who had a vantage point above the stage. Someone's gonna be lying here. I doubt Gina would lie. It was an incidente terrible. I am only grateful that my balloons were not damaged. Okay, that doesn't sound like a lie. There's this huge bang from the stage, and then the next second, another bang in the sky besides us. Okay, not a lie either. And from amidst the smoke, a cage appeared out of nowhere. The cage, it fell from the sky like a stone and crashed into the Crystal Tower. I didn't get a good look inside the cage, but no one went near it after it crashed into the tower. A most extraordinary collective account, I must say. Could I just clarify something? There's a detail in the witness's testimony that I have not heard any mention of until now. Specifically, that there were 2 explosions. More precisely, 2 explosions in 2 separate places. Yes. What is that supposed to mean? This is important. When the demonstration began, the balloon carrying the 2 witnesses was around. Here. There were other balloons in the air nearby at the time, carrying other passengers as well, to be clear. Then, as power was supplied to the machine for the demonstration, the first explosion occurred. The so-called birdcage that contained the victim disappeared from the stage, and then a moment later, the second explosion occurred, directly adjacent to the balloon carrying the witnesses. Sorry, guys. The birdcage appeared at the site of the explosion, subsequently to plummet down into the Crystal Tower. I was very surprised. Suddenly a cage appeared before my eyes, viz a person inside. The blast was so hot, but I didn't want to miss a thing, so I kept my eyes wide. Okay, wow, he's buying a lot of those balloons. I still have lots of money. Okay, you know, how is this relevant? Precisely, who is this curious infant? I'm told he is a young noble of Bohemian royalty. Apparently, he disguised himself in order to steal unnoticed into the Great Exhibition. So he's an aristocrat. Yeah, I am here in London on a sightseeing trip viz my elementary school. We will have the benefit of a child's point of view in the testimony. Okay. Now, this is like complicated right now on whether this is realistic or not, because you can bring in kids to testify. That can happen in trial, but kids are very unreliable in testimony because kids will oftentimes mistake things for what happened. Sometimes they'll lie. It's you know, kids are just not as reliable as adults when it comes to testifying. So a child can be brought in to testify, but you know, it varies on the age. Usually younger kids, like really young, aren't going to be brought in to testify because it's going to be discounted. But sometimes it can happen. But also, you know, putting a kid to testify can put a lot of emotional strain on them because the child has to relive that traumatic event. They have to try to think about what happened, and at the same time they're gonna have the prosecutor and the defense questioning them at the same time. And so that can be a lot of stress for a child to handle. So a lot of times kids aren't gonna be testifying in real court. Though it can happen, kids can be witnesses, it's just not really common. But certainly like this type of thing, this is very unrealistic. Do we really need that? Then I remove my mask. This is what I look like. Ah, yes, I see. A delightful face, I'm sure. Yeah, everybody says so. Great disguise, then. The point is, the testimony's witnesses further substantiates the fact for the court. Namely, that despite ending in an explosion, instantaneous kinesis was successfully demonstrated. And furthermore, that until the arrival of the police, no one approached the Crystal Tower where the victim fell. Therefore, only the accused who was with Mr. Asman on the stage could possibly have committed the murder. Yes, thank you, counsel. The prosecution's views on the matter are quite clear. So, the defense cross-examination now, please. Yes, my lord. The view from 60 feet up. It was an incidente terrible. I am only grateful that my balloons were not damaged. Let's press this. There were 3 balloons flying above the experimentation stage at the time, I understand. See, all 3 of them, my bellissimi bambini. What is that? They are very popular, Signor. Some people will pay £10 for one ride. That's a lot of money back then. £10? That's more than my annual stipend. Let me see exactly. I'm gonna Google this right now. I'm just curious. How much is £10? £10 in 1880. Let's see. That'd be a lot of money back then. £10 in 1880 would have been equivalent to £1,103 today. Damn, for a balloon ride that much, that's, oh my god, that is, that's just, damn. Okay, yeah, that is just something else. This is something that only rich people would be doing. So it's like, in this time period, rich people in this time period were very different than rich people today. Because rich people today show off too. Don't get me wrong, it happens. But rich people back then were notorious for showing off. When somebody was rich, they wanted everyone to know that. They wanted everyone to see that. They would dress up in the fanciest clothes. They would ride in the fanciest carriages. They would eat at the fanciest restaurants. They would live in the biggest, most fanciest house possible. They would attend the most fanciest parties. They would basically be spending as much money as possible just to show off their wealth. And the really rich people, like the really, really rich people, like the equivalent to like almost billionaires back then, they would actually ride in like these trains. So they had their own trains, and inside the train, it was almost like a mansion inside the train. Like it was like the train had like their own bedrooms, like a palace. It was like a dining room, like a living room, a reading room, library room. Like it was just crazy. You know, all this expensive stuff. Today, you know, while rich people do show off, like, you know, they drive around in Lamborghinis, some sports cars, you know, they will wear some expensive clothing and go to expensive, you know, restaurants. It's not as common for rich people to show off. Like, a lot of times rich people will wear, like, you know, common clothes. They'll eat the same kind of food that everyone else eats. You know, they won't really be spending money going to these fancy parties or restaurants or stuff like that. But, like, back then, the aristocrats, the nobles, especially, they were very notorious for trying to show off. I know I'm talking about this a lot, but for hundreds of years in European history, you had this whole class of people, the aristocrats, that were just basically wanted to show off as rich as they possibly were. And a lot of times, these people were scumbags, a lot of times. Like, they were not good people. They were pretty arrogant, rude, very selfish people, and they treated poorer people very badly. They treated peasants and working class people really, really badly. So something like this, in this time period, like having like a balloon for like almost 1,000 pounds today, like, yeah, that would basically be like a rich person just showing off that I can get in the sky, I can ride this fancy balloon, and telling all the poor people all this stuff. So back then, you know, there was just, you had a lot of people like that, unfortunately. 20 pounds a month, that is my pocket money. And I'm not even trying to make an accent, but every single time I'm reading his thing, I'm making an accent. But, you know, now that it's coming to me, so Bohemia, somebody correct me if I'm wrong in the chat on this, because I know some of you guys that watch my videos are from Czechoslovakia, or, I'm sorry, not Czechoslovakia, the Czech Republic. Czech Republic and Slovakia, two countries today. I apologize for saying Czechoslovakia. But then there was a country, Czechoslovakia, and then it broke apart. But Bohemia was like a kingdom, hundreds of years ago. And even though it was part of the part of what is modern-day Czech Republic, there was also a lot of Germans that lived there. So the way that he's saying this, I'm assuming that he's a German Bohemian. Bohemia is also the setting of that game, I'm trying to remember, Kingdom Come Deliverance. That's the setting of that game. Royals have all the luck. I got up there for free, I did. Played the old I work for Her Majesty's Police card, you know. Detectives have all the luck. I could never do, like, Gina's accent. Like, Gina, like, the way that I read her, like, her dialogue, she has the most thickest accent, I can tell. Like, the way that she pronounces things and says things, but I could never, like, try to say that accent. I could probably try to do a German accent or a Russian accent, but I could never do her accent. That'd be too hard for me to do. If they're so popular, why would you only be operating such a small number of balloons, though? Because if I have too many in the skies, they could crash into each other. That's a good point. The operators for the balloons were decided by lots, with each operator manning a particular area. C. And the zone above public experimentation stage is the most profitable. The other impresarios, they hate me. Thank you, witness. I think the court has a clear picture of the arrangements for balloon rides at the exhibition. Perhaps we could hear more about what you actually witnessed of the incident. Right. I can, fill you in there, my lord. There's this huge, bang from the stage, and then the next second, another bang in the sky besides us.
Hold it!
So you actually saw the accident happen from up in the air. Yep. Isn't it amazing what a detective gets to do, eh? I'm telling you, Otto, being a lawyer is a mug game. You should join the force and we can go flying together. You know me so well. Yes, well anyway, could you tell us exactly what you saw, do you think? Everything. We saw everything, because we were up above it all. That dodgy cove climbing into the cage, and that dodgy professor pulling all them levers. And that's when it happened. That's when there was that massive bang and the cage disappeared, just like that. You are describing the moment the subject's body was decomposed by the electricity, I believe. I didn't know what to make of it, but then there was another bang right in me ear, so there's been 2 explosions. That's not a coincidence. Something's going on behind the scenes here. That second explosion is very relevant. We haven't determined exactly how significant, but I'm telling you, it's relevant. I looked around, and there was a huge great fireball right next to us in the sky, and there was, nothing there before. Oh.
Excuse me.
Master Gotts, does your memory of the day differ? My teacher at elementary school said that you meet someone for the first time. You should always use their full name. Yes, what was it again? Wilhelm Gottsreich Sigismund Ormstein. Okay, that name is definitely like a joke. Like they made that name just for fun, because it's like who is gonna say this every single time you meet him? He's like you have to say my full name. It's like who is going to read this like every single time? It's like I'm not gonna say that every single time I refer to him. It's just God. Just the 4 names then? The point is, do you have something to say? Something to add in response to Detective Gina Lestrade's last remark, perhaps? Oi, get it right, Otto. It's Inspector Lestrade. Why does everyone have a problem with how I address them at the moment? That is not what I saw. Oh? Yeah, there was a second explosion, and it was right beside our balloons. That is true. But I'm sure, which is what I said in it, 1 minute there was nothing, the next a massive explosion. My teacher at elementary school said that when someone else is speaking, if you are rude enough to interrupt, you will have the most awful life imaginable. Are all Bohemians brought up to be so full of joy? What happened to the previous balloon? Just before the second explosion happened, next to our balloon, I clearly witnessed a green balloon flying in the sky. A green balloon. Hey, you what? I never saw nothing like that. Well, I did. I saw it, and you can't say I didn't. I will complain to the consul. I will cry and scream. My testimony is the truth. I am Bohemian Prince. You cannot say it's a lie. That is not allowed. Tisk, playing the bleeding royalty card, are you? Typical. Says the orphan who likes to remind people she works for Her Majesty's police. In that case, young man, I must ask you to amend your formal testimony, in the interest of cordial national relations between Great Britain and Bohemia. It was next the sky that exploded. It was a green balloon that was next to ours at the time.
Hold it!
A green balloon, you say? Are you sure about that? Of course I'm sure. I'm a proud Bohemian Prince. All these, questions are making me boring. I think you mean bored. Ah, English is very annoying. The language of my countrymen is far superior. Okay, being a bit arrogant here, and rude. Ragazzo, it is very wrong to lie. Lie? Flying balloons never explode. For the same reason the planets never explode. It is logical. Please tell me that doesn't mean logical. If you insult me, you insult all of Bohemia. Madai. I will have the army come and shoot all of your stupid balloons out of the sky, all of them. Okay. So now this kid is a bit of a psycho. Here you are, Your Highness. My god, if this child is this arrogant right now, and he's supposed to be a prince, I can't imagine what he's like when he's gonna be a king. If only all international incidents were so easily resolved. Now that peaceful relations have been restored here in the courtroom, perhaps we could return to the testimony. Did you also see the moment that the cage materialized, Mr. Loon? No, I did not see the explosion myself, however. And also, I'll say that, you know, I'm not sure what type of government Bohemia had at this time. I think Bohemia was its own independent kingdom at this time. But in this time period, monarchy especially was also very arrogant because there was constitutional monarchies, like Britain was a constitutional monarchy at this time, but then you had also absolute monarchies, and you had like an absolute monarchy in, absolute monarchy was pretty much in Russia, was the Tsar, which is Russian king. The Tsar had a lot of power until the First Revolution, that was the 1905 revolution in Russia, 1904-1905 revolution. A parliament came into Russia, and then you had the Kaiser in Germany, who was almost an absolute monarchy. There was a little bit of parliament, but the Kaiser had way more power than the king and queen in Britain. But a lot of these monarchies, absolute monarchy, they basically have full power, and it was that the idea of it was that they have the right to rule from God. That was the right of it, and the French Revolution kind of broke that. Because, like, France used to be an absolute monarchy. I know I don't want to bore everybody by talking about a lot about history, but I like reading a lot about this time period, especially in France. When there was King Louis was an absolute monarch, and basically there was all these propaganda of like King Louis, that he was like the sun, that he could see you, that he knows what you're thinking and stuff like that, and people actually believe this stuff. And so the idea was that the king has the right to rule from God. God appoints the king is God's representative on earth, and the king's orders are God's orders. That's basically the sum of it. And that's why people didn't question monarchy for hundreds of years, because they were scared of religion and they were scared of God. Not that there's anything wrong with religion or believing in God, but that people were almost like brainwashed in a way that you cannot question the kings at all, because the kings are representative of God. And so that's why people followed these kings and queens. They followed whatever they said, no matter how stupid it was. They followed what they said, because they were scared of the king and queen, and they were also scared of God. But the French Revolution changed all of that. The French Revolution, when they overthrew the monarchy, that was like the beginning of the end for absolute monarchy in Europe. But anyways, let's continue here. And so like this kid's like really arrogant. So this kid is like, you know, the very typical, like, you know, arrogant monarch of the time period. The cage, it fell from the sky like a stone and crashed into the crystal tower.
Hold it!
Did you see that actually happen? No. In reality, I did not. I saw it after it hit the tower. There was a grand confusion around the stage. I ran to see what had happened. I was terrorized by the idea that one of my balloons had crashed. I suppose they are his livelihood. But when I looked up to the sky, all my precious balloons were still there. I saw it though. I saw it slam into the tower after all. I'm a detective now. Well, assistant. Then tell us what you saw, Inspector Lestrade. That's what I like to hear. So there was an extra balloon. I didn't get a good look inside the cage, but no one went near it after it crashed into the tower.
Hold it!
Was it you who gave the order to keep people away? Use your head, Otto. How could it have been me? I was up in a balloon, weren't I? Right. So, cause I weren't available, it was the boss who had to, leg it over there. He was getting shoved and kicked all over by the panicking, spectators as he tried to steal off the scene. It was a real sight to behold, I can tell you. Amazing. Poor Inspector Gregson. So anyway, I couldn't see the cage that well because of all the smoke. And I didn't really want to see, to be honest. I was scared out of me wits. Keep it together, Inspector. The prosecution really is asserting that the demonstration was genuine. What if it was actually some kind of switch-around trick instead? That's what I'm starting to think. That would mean that the victim was never actually on the stage in the first place. The two explosions would have thrown everyone watching into a panic for sure. I think I need to find out more about what exactly people saw at the time. A green balloon. Piece of green cloth. I wonder if this is it. Let's present this.
Objection!
Surely something about that last statement seems odd, doesn't it? Oh. Would you care to mull over precisely what you find odd about it on your return journey to Japan? I wouldn't be back to give the court an answer for about 4 months, though. Wow, I already made a mistake. That was my first mistake. Rest assured, we should be happy to carry proceedings forward in your absence, counsel. He sounds serious. I have to prove my worth before he really does send me back home. Okay. Okay. The Reaper attacked. I don't think I had this updated here, but I did look at this before. It's the kingpins of the criminal underworld generally manage to escape conviction in the Reaper's trial, and this isn't the first time their henchmen have tried to attack Lord Van Zeeks as a result by the sound of it. It makes you think, if that's how the justice system works in London, then there must be dark forces at work. Okay. It was next the skies that exploded. It was green balloons that was next to ours at the time. What could this be? I think this is important because he updated this, remember? I'm convinced that this green thing is part of that balloon that blew up. But the question is, why was there another balloon in the sky, and why did that balloon explode? Was the balloon some kind of bomb? Because there was such a thing as explosive balloons. That did happen. That was actually a weapon that was actually used in history. Let me think here. not a lot of evidence that I have to present. But what statement do I have to point to here? This is like when the part when Ace Attorney gets the hardest. It's like this is the part where the game gets the hardest, when you're trying to figure out which statement to choose and what piece of evidence to present. Like, you have to really think. Let me see what Naruhodo says here. The prosecution really is asserting that the demonstration was genuine. But what if it was actually some kind of switch-around trick instead? That would mean that the victim was never actually on the stage in the first place. The two explosions would have thrown everyone watching into a panic for sure. I think I need to find out more about what exactly people saw at the time. Okay, so judging by that, I have to try to figure out like a way to prove that the victim wasn't in the thing. I wonder if I can use this, that it's been hidden there deliberately. Let's see if I can use this. This is probably gonna not work, but let's try.
Objection.
Nope, it's not gonna work. I'm making mistakes here. I have 3 more chances left. I gotta think. Let me move my camera here because there might be something that I'm not seeing. Let's see here. Is there something I'm not seeing? I think this statement is the one that's important.
Hold it!
What do I... A green balloon, you say? Are you sure about that? Of course I'm sure. I'm a proud Bohemian prince. Okay. We've already read this here, but... I gotta really think. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I'm taking so long on this part, guys. But I'm trying to think. I don't want to make another mistake. I'm trying to think. What do I present? I have to present something, a piece of evidence on one of these parts.
Hold it!
Okay, we read this before. Oh, looks like I might have missed something. What is this here? Ah, there's some sort of lever here. It's a crossbow, like I thought it was. I originally thought that it was a crossbow, before. I can't believe I missed that. A weapon found hidden behind a tree under the experimentation stage exhibit grounds. It turns out it's a folding crossbow. It looks like you wind this around in order to draw the bowstring back and create tension, that's right. You must be able to fire arrows with a huge amount of force using this device then. In fact, I would imagine it's far more accurate and powerful than a Japanese longbow. It is. I really had no idea what I was picking up when I spotted this at the exhibition grounds. This groove here must be where the arrows are loaded, I suppose. So I was right, it's a sort of bow with an automatic firing mechanism. This would be perfect for someone like me who catches his ear with the bowstring 2 times out of 3. In fact, if I had one of these, maybe I could have beaten Kazuma in Kyoto archery training. I can't believe I missed that. I kept inspecting this thing so many times, and I missed that. I just went back to this, looking at it. But basically, the crossbow, you know, how this works is you place the arrow here. A lot of crossbows, you would pull the string back yourself, and then you would latch the string onto this. You would put the string on this little latch. It would hold it. This one looks like you would rotate this back, and if you rotate that back, it'll probably rotate the string back. And so what happens is you place the bolt here. When you pull this trigger, it releases this latch. And what happens was the string flies forward, and with the force of that, the arrow is launched, or the bolt, I should say, because it's not an arrow, it's a bolt with a crossbow. And this slams the string will slam against the front of the crossbow. I'm trying to remember what this part is called. But that's basically, you know, how a crossbow works. You know, just you take the string back, you know, you place it on this little latch, it's holding it, you place a bolt here, you pull the trigger, the bolt releases the latch, the thing goes flying with the force of the string. But normally crossbows are not completely silent. Like in movies and stuff like that, you know, you see it, the crossbows make almost no noise. They do make noise. The noise that the crossbow makes is when the string actually hits, when the force of the string flies and hits this part, it'll make some noise. Not as loud as a gun, obviously, but it'll make some noise. Okay, that's gonna be important. Wait a second. Wait. Was he shot with the crossbow? That's what killed him. Because a crossbow bolt is very, you know, very linear. It's a very sharp linear object, so it would make a pretty clean wound. And so, was he really shot with a crossbow instead of this? But why does the screwdriver have blood on it though? He was probably shot with the crossbow. That's probably what killed him. But the crossbow could have also been used to shoot that balloon in the sky. Damn, this is starting to get confusing now. Let's see if I can present this to her.
Objection.
Damn. It's not working either. I'm gonna save here just to be safe because I'm making a lot of mistakes right now. It was an incidente terrible. I am only grateful that my balloons were not damaged.
Objection.
So it's the green cloth that I had to show him. Man, that one was pretty hard. I spent literally like half an hour just thinking about literally which one to go to, and it's that one. That's just man, I didn't want to bore you guys, so I kind of cut it to like, half an hour later, but I was like, trying to think exactly what that could be. Mr. Loon, in your testimony, you said that all 3 of the balloons you had operating at the time were undamaged. I don't understand why I couldn't show the green cloth to the prince. Like, because the prince said it was a green balloon that went up, so it would make sense. See, that is correct. If they had been caught in the explosion, it would have been terrible. I wonder if you might know what this is. Ah, I think it may be... See, part of a balloon, a burnt piece of the fabric of the envelope. Sorry, the envelope? Pardon. That is the large round part of the balloon which becomes filled with hot air. It is made from very thick fabric lined with rubber. You do not want to rip when you are in the sky. Just as I thought. This piece of cloth was found near the experimentation stage. In other words, as Master Gotts testified, a green balloon did indeed explode that day. Eh? If all the balloons in the sky above the experimentation stage belong to you, Mr. Loon, then your statement that they were all undamaged clearly contradicts the evidence. That's a really good point there. So all of the balloons apparently in the sky were his, and we're now hearing about this extra balloon, this 4th balloon that blew up. No. If a balloon exploded that day, why didn't the man say so? Maybe everyone on board was killed. Oh no, having just spent 10 whole pounds for the experience, how awful. Seems to me like those things crash 50% of the time anyway.
Objection.
The jury's talking now. The instantaneous kinesis did occur, but after the explosion on the stage. The point of materialization shifted to a location occupied by a balloon, causing the balloon to explode. Yes, eminently plausible. An unfortunate traffic accident, as it were, but it changes nothing about the pertinent facts. This I cannot accept. He's angry now. Why not, Mr. Loon? You are suggesting that I am a liar. That person's died in a balloon incidente. There's no need to get fired up, Mr. Loon. The victim was the sole fatality that day. That's right, and I prove it. Balthazar Loon is not a liar. There was no such balloon in the sky. It is non-possible. You're saying it's impossible. Why? This court has more important matters to discuss than the number of balloons that were operating that day. No, I think it's pretty relevant. Aye.
Objection.
But we can't ignore the fact that nobody appears to have known anything about this other balloon until now. My lord, the defense calls for further testimony from Mr. Loon. I concur. There is clearly more to the truth here than meets the eye. It's imperative that we clear up the issue of this phantom balloon, I feel. Witness, you will give supplementary testimony about the balloons you were operating at the exhibition. Ah. Grazy, my lord. What language is that? Mr. Loon's balloons. As I said, Balthazar Loon is no liar. Every balloon I had in the sky landed safely. All 3 of my balloons were carrying passengers. If they fell to the ground explosion. What a catastrophe. But you can't get away from the fact that a burnt up bit of cloth was found at the scene, can you? The coppers the yard reckoned it was probably some debris thrown from the explosion on the stage. This stupid ragazzo is mistaken. My balloons have the red and blue zigzag stripes anyway. So your assertion is that the balloon this child saw was not one belonging to you. See, exactamente. If he even saw a balloon in the first place, I do not like the sound of it. It is very bad for business. I have a good mind to sue the land of Bohemia. If you attack us, we will fight back. It will be war, all-out war. What happened to all-out war? Mr. Loon certainly doesn't appear to be lying. But that doesn't change the fact that the testimony and evidence are contradictory here. If the defense is unable to find fault with the witnesses' statements, the court must consider them the truth. Think long and hard on that, my learned friend. The situation has clearly changed now. I have to get to the bottom of what happened here, no matter what it takes. Counsel, you may now cross-examine the witnesses. Now, here's the thing. He might be mistaken, not lying. But we're gonna find out. Mr. Loon's balloons. As I said, Balthazar Loon is no liar. Every balloon I had in the sky landed safely.
Hold it!
You couldn't just have forgotten one, maybe. Signor. I might not notice if I was given 100 lentils and one was missing. But we are talking about 3 enormous balloons. Do you believe I can make a mistake about something so grande and expensive? I took the liberty of having Inspector Gregson check this gentleman's warehouse. I have the report here. It clearly says a total of 3 balloons. It would appear no mistake has been made then. Surely Mr. Lestrade could have been sent for such a menial task. What, me? I'll tell you what I told the boss. East End kids like me can only count up to 2. Obviously that ain't true, but the boss bought it and said he'd have to go himself in that case. Ha. All 3 of my balloons were carrying passengers, so they fell to the ground in an explosion. What a catastrophe.
Hold it!
It would be quite a catastrophe if they fell to the ground for any reason, I think. On that note, Mr. Loon, tell me, what is it that keeps these balloons in the sky? Are you an idiota? Sorry? That is like asking, why does a candle burn bright? It burns bright because it burns bright, and a balloon flies because it flies. What else? Ha, that must be Italian for, I don't know, so he's Italian then. There are 2 types of flying balloons, hot air balloons and gas balloons. Hot air balloons work on the principle of hot air being less dense than cold air, whereas gas balloons derive their lift by using a gas that is lighter than air. See, and my balloons are filled with the magic gas, I believe. Hydrogen, lighter than air, but highly explosive. Good lord. I do not permit smoking of the cigarettes in any of my balloons. The magic gas does not like fire. Even a small spark of static electricity could cause the entire balloon to explode. What is the matter with you, Signor? All that comes out of your mouth is explosion. Explosion. I tell you, my balloons are perfectly safe. They have to be, or I cannot eat. None of my balloons exploded that day. I am completely sure. But if you still say that is what happened, you must show me the proof. Alright, so Mr. Loon had 3 balloons in the air that day. If none of them were damaged, then what was the one that exploded? An extra balloon. But you can't get away from the fact that a burnt-up bit of cloth was found at the scene, can you?
Hold it!
I was surprised to find a piece of fabric still at the scene, actually. Didn't you search the area surrounding the stage for clues? Nah, I'm not into picking stuff up off the ground, me. Always works out way better, diving into people's pockets instead. So much for the new career path. Mind you, the boss was on his hands and his knees picking up all kinds of rubbish from the floor. Rubbish is, a term in Britain that they mean for garbage. That's what, a lot of times they'll say rubbish instead of garbage, but that's basically it. Thing is, though, the cage went crashing into the crystal tower, didn't it? So that's where most of the investigating was going on. Even so, I would have thought someone from Scotland Yard would have gathered it up as evidence. Core, listen to you. You stumble across a bit of balloon and suddenly you're the best investigator in the world. Pardon? Well, you ain't got a badge, have you, like this one. I could arrest you with this if I wanted to. I wouldn't put it past her. Come to think of it, there was talk of some scorching on the ground at a meeting we had about the investigation. The coppers at the yard reckoned it was probably some debris from the explosion on the stage. No. There was considerable damage to the stage and surrounding area, wasn't there? Yeah, some of the coves what were watching the experiment were caught in the blast and injured. Good job the old contraption didn't kneel over, eh? I hadn't even considered that. It seems there was a great panic after the incident occurred. Nevertheless, the police shouldn't have missed a torn piece of the envelope from a balloon. Inspector Gregson can expect repercussions. And that's the thing about Van Zeeks. He gets really angry when people mess up or when they lie. Like me swiping all his fish and chips, eh? The man's sole pleasure. None of this matters. That scrap of balloon envelope means nothing. Niente. This stupid ragazzo's mistaken. My balloons have the red and blue zigzag stripes anyway.
Hold it!
You mean the color is wrong? See, Signor, I do not have any green balloons in my warehouse. And yet, a piece of green cloth was found at the scene, and it's unmistakably from a balloon. Well, I do not know how that can be. For the sake of argument, let's say that a green balloon did explode above the stage. You couldn't therefore conclude that it happened on the day in question. Why not? There have been recreational balloon flights over Hyde Park operating from before the Great Exhibition. One could have exploded on some earlier date, unfortunate, as I'm sure you'd agree. You believe it may have been from some earlier balloon accident that predates the exhibition? Notice how that's highlighted. See, exactamente, as the Signor says, it is not from one of my balloons. Clearly this little ragazzo from Bohemia is mistaken about what he saw. Oh?
Excuse me.
Is something wrong, Master Gotts? It's Master Wilhelm Gottschalk Sigismund Ormstein. It was on the tip of my tongue. Yeah, something is very wrong. I know what I saw. There was a green balloon there. I swear it. I swear it all over Bohemia. You can speak as much bad language as you like, but it changes nothing. If you do not have evidence, Ragazzo, then I must tell your parents to punish you, eh? Perhaps we'll let the judge decide when it comes to punishments. Evidence? What is this evidence? To give a simple example, young man. A photograph, for instance. Some tangible proof of what you claim. Well, why didn't you say so sooner? I have the photograph here. Good gracious. What? Wait, he has a photo? I had not been up in a balloon for a little while, so I was very excited. I took lots and lots of photographs. Of the crystal tower, of the Bohemian exhibit, of the streets of London, of the hot eel cellar, the balloon. And the instantaneous kinesis experiment. Did you take a picture of that? Yeah, one picture. Really, you did take one. But all I wanted was a ride in a balloon. I was not interested in boring experiments. Never mind that. Can you show us the photograph? Of course, and then you will see. You will see what I am not lying, that I really did see a green balloon. There it is. It's a green balloon. It's empty, look. But there's nobody inside of it, so the balloon's rogue. Well, I see you are all too shocked to speak. Yes, I think shocked is indeed the word, young man. Yeah, perhaps you cannot see that it was a green balloon from this photograph, but that is not my fault. That is the fault of this stupid person who made the camera. Wow, ha. That is one very bohemian-sounding cry. Very well, the court will accept this photograph as evidence. Photograph of the balloon. A photograph taken by Gotts while he was riding in a balloon. It shows another balloon that he claims was green exploded moments after he got after he took this shot. It's not my fault. It's the fault of the person who made the camera. Well, never mind. I'm sure you have plenty of wonderful sepia memories to take home with you. In any case, when exactly do you take that photograph? Well, it was on the day of the big explosion. You don't say. When I pressed the shutter release, there was this very loud bang, and a hot wind rushed over my face. That means this photograph was taken a split second before the explosion occurred. Well, if you ask me, this black and white photograph changes nothing. I could not give the flying a fig. Lovely language you've picked up. As I thought, Mr. Loon's testimony just doesn't quite add up. The young bohemian boy claims to have seen another fourth balloon, but Mr. Loon vehemently denies the possibility. And it's hard to imagine the man in charge could be mistaken about the number that were in the air. Still, this inconsistency must tell us something, I'm sure. Let's look at this photograph. There's no one in that balloon. This is right before the explosion. There's Professor Hairbrayne. There's Asman. Is this new piece of evidence? What can I say here? This balloon has no passengers. Let me see if I can present this to him.
Objection!
Yup, it's right. There was no passengers. Unfortunately, the photograph Master Gotts took can't tell us the color of the balloon. But it can tell us something else. Something crucially important, the passengers. What? It shows that the pictured balloon wasn't carrying any passengers. Ah, my goodness, you're right. But surely all the balloons would have been carrying passengers. There would be no sense in it otherwise. See, they are for pleasure, for seeing the view. My balloons only fly with passengers. Which tells us that the pictured balloon isn't one of them. So when the incident occurred that day, there was a fourth balloon in the skies above the experimentation stage. The mysterious green balloon. I know nothing. Niente. I can only tell you one thing. If this balloon was not carrying passengers, then it was not one of mine.
Objection!
There are illegal tradesmen everywhere you care to look. Clearly, one such entrepreneur decided to capitalize on the opportunity presented by the Great Exhibition and managed to operate balloon flights on Mr. Loon's patch without him realizing. But then why is the balloon empty? That makes no sense. See, the competition trying to steal my profits. I did not notice because of the experimento that went wrong on the stage. This fourth balloon exploded at the very same moment Mr. Asman was beamed from the stage below. Right. So them scraps that fell to the floor after and left them scorch marks. They didn't come from the stage at all. It was bits of balloon raining down. Because no one was in it, it didn't get no attention. A mysterious fourth balloon carrying no passengers, silently floating over the experimentation stage.
Objection!
This photograph shows us nothing more. A stray balloon carrying no one and operated by some rogue trader clearly has nothing to do with this case. I disagree. This is relevant to the case. There's no coincidence. It's no coincidence that a balloon was flying like right above the stage, like a moment before the two explosions occurred. The balloon blowing up and also the explosion machine. Its relevance does elude me, I must say. This court has seen sufficient evidence and heard ample testimony already. The prosecution calls for this trial to be concluded. Really? Have we really got to the truth yet? No, I can't let this opportunity slip away. The jurors' minds are made up, and not in our favor. What else can this photograph tell us, if there is nothing more we can learn from it? What is this beam of light here? It looks like something's about to hit the balloon. Wait, is that the crossbow? But a crossbow wouldn't be beamed like this. Like, you wouldn't see it like, you wouldn't see something like this, like from a crossbow. It would be hard to even capture the bolt on camera. I think it's this. Yep, there's more.
Objection!
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, wait. Please don't give your decisions yet. The photograph from Master Gotts may well be hiding one more vital clue. What's that? A vital clue?
Objection!
We're well past the point of mere possibilities. It's time for definitives now. So tell the court. What exactly does this alleged clue in the photograph prove? The cause of the explosion. We can reasonably assume that the pictured balloon was destroyed in the searing heat of the explosion. Yeah, that's right, yeah. It was not my fault. Evidently, because the birdcage from the kinesis machine materialized in the sky where it had been flying. And the balloon, being filled with flammable hydrogen, instantly and explosively ignited.
Objection!
No, that's not what happened. What? It would appear that this photograph requires closer examination. Counsel for the defense, you will highlight the location of this alleged clue in the photograph for the court. Of course, my lord. If you look closely, it's plain enough to see, and what's shown is linked to another piece of evidence we have. In a way, that leads to an unbelievable conclusion. The clue that heavily suggests that the real reason the balloon exploded is right here.
Take that!
The timing of this photograph can only be described as miraculous. If you look, you'll notice there's a bright white line that appears to point directly at the balloon. Most likely a ray of light caught incidentally on the film. No, it's the crossbow. But a crossbow wouldn't leave like a trail like that unless it's firing some crazy projectile. I'm afraid I can see nothing of the sort. If you look with a magnifying glass, my lord, it becomes clear what the nature of this bright light really is. Goodness, what is that? Undeniably some flash of light, yes. Oh golly, do you think it might be lightning? No, it's a crossbow bolt, but it couldn't have been a finer day. I believe we may be looking at fire. A bolt of fire, heading straight for the balloon, like an arrow. Indeed, even to my aging eyes, it would appear to be a flame of some sort. My word, are you suggesting this flame struck the hydrogen gas that filled the balloon? Yup.
Objection!
That's absurd. The balloon would have been 60 feet above the ground at the time. No flame could possibly have reached such a height.
Objection!
Actually, it's my opinion that a particular piece of evidence found at the scene reveals how that is exactly what did happen. What evidence? Zeeks is thrown off guard here. If such evidence exists, counsel, then for the goodness sake, present it, man. Ha. Which evidence explains this mysterious streak of flame that appears to be headed directly for the balloon? Crossbow.
Take that!
This was found hidden at the foot of the small ornamental tree near the scene. Good lord, is that a crossbow? An arrow dipped in oil and set alight could have been shot from this weapon, sending a flaming arrow straight into the hydrogen-filled balloon. Right, I didn't think about that. It could have been a flaming bolt too, but that would be hard to make in a crossbow. That would just be hard to fire from a crossbow, but that is a possibility also. Are you suggesting that crossbow was used to deliberately... Blimey, you're right, that streak of light in the photo looks just like an arrow, doesn't it? Then, the explosion of the balloon, it was... very likely the result of a flaming arrow from this crossbow, igniting the hydrogen gas inside it. No. Zeeks is thrown off guard now. Order, order. Counsel, this is an extraordinary supposition. If the aim was to cause the balloon to explode, the shooter could have used a gun, of course. However, there's an obvious reason why that would have been out of the question. Because everybody would have heard it. The noise of the discharge, of course. That's right. By using a crossbow, the projectile could be fired at the balloon silently. Well, like I said, a crossbow makes a little bit of noise, but it's not as loud as a gun. Well, yeah, if someone had shot a gun off in the exhibition grounds, it would have caused a real panic. But with the big explosion, there was a very big panic anyway, no? The reason is because they didn't want somebody to catch them shooting at the balloon. I don't like this. I should be pleased to have found a plausible new explanation for all this, but something feels wrong.
Objection!
I agree. Do you understand the implications of what you're saying, my Nipponese friend? If a flaming arrow did indeed hit the balloon, then obviously it would have exploded. And if the birdcage appeared from the cloud of smoke that ensured... What? Wait a minute. What are you really saying, Ear? I don't get it. Was the birdcage beamed up into the sky after all? Or what? My goodness me. Ah, now I understand. That's what this sinking feeling is about. I think there's a good chance that the birdcage was actually concealed inside the balloon all along. What? Did I just hear that correctly, Counsel? There's no going back now. The horse is bolted. Let's assume, as I said, that the birdcage was hidden inside the green balloon from the start. On stage, when the experiment was started, the birdcage in the instantaneous kinesis machine disappeared in a cloud of smoke. At that moment, the flaming arrow was fired from the ground, causing the green balloon to explode and drawing the attention of the spectators to the sky above their heads. That's what happened there. From amidst the smoke, the hidden birdcage then appeared to fall down and crash into the crystal tower. So he got shot with the crossbow bolt. It went through the balloon and probably hit him with the bolt. I think you'd all agree it's entirely plausible that what I've just described is the real truth behind the miraculous experiment carried out that day. This. Good grief. So the thing was a scam. This is ludicrous. What you described is no science experiment. It's child's play, a contemptible display of a stage magic. Both Mr. Sholmes and Iris said the experiment was a scientific impossibility. In which case, this is the only way to explain what happened that day. And in any case, the victim's body was found inside the birdcage in the Crystal Tower. If the instantaneous kinesis didn't take place, how do you explain that? If I may put in a word as a man of magic myself. Such apparent discrepancies can easily be explained by some simple deception. Juror number 3. All that would be needed is a doppelganger, someone who looked very similar to the victim, Mr. Asman. And having this other man appear on stage to front the show as a body double. Exactly. But I was thinking that there's possibly could be a wax figure involved, but that he also raises a good point. There could be somebody that made himself look like Mr. Asman as a double. Ah, yes, of course. So in fact, Mr. Asman must have been inside the birdcage that was concealed inside the balloon from the start.
Objection!
That balloon would have been filled with hydrogen. Anything hidden inside it would have been scattered to the four winds when it exploded. No one would ever have embarked on such a risky venture. Not necessarily. The explosive force of the balloon gas would very much depend on the mixture ratio. Juror number 4. Wow, all these guys are experts on something. Flying balloons are rarely filled with pure hydrogen, but a mixture of other gases such as helium as well. Helium on its own doesn't explode, but by controlling the gas mixture ratio, the explosive force can be altered. The mixture ratio? Obviously, the victim's body would have suffered some burns. That would be unavoidable. But not to such an extent as to render the whole obscene charade impossible. So everything that happened can be explained, logically and scientifically. The explosion that engulfed the stage at the start of the experiment was no accident. It was all part of an elaborate deception, to make it appear that the instantaneous kinesis had occurred. Well, goodness me. And if we accept that this is what happened, it means that the victim, Mr. Asman, was never present on the public experimentation stage to begin with. Urgh. In short, he couldn't have been killed by the defendant who was on stage in full view the entire time. I just really hope the professor doesn't ruin this now. This will be very hard for the prosecution to counter. Lord Van Zieks can't credibly maintain that Professor Hairbrayne is a suspect now. Hold it. No! Mr. Naruhodo, I appreciate your efforts, thank you. Professor? But you can stop now. Just keep your mouth shut, please. Sorry? What's all this about, Mr. Hairbrayne? I, Albert Hairbrayne, hereby confess that it was me who stabbed Mr. Odie Asman. No, he didn't. Yes, it was me, with my faithful friend and partner, Andrew the Screwdriver. He's admitting that he's lying. He didn't really do it. The reason he's admitting to it right now is because he doesn't want his invention to be disproven. He doesn't want it to be made out to be a scam. He really thinks that it worked when it was actually faked. What are you doing? Order. Defendant, explain this sudden confession.
Objection!
Professor Hairbrayne, what are you talking about? It's what I've said all along. I must protect my hypothesis and my precious machine. You stand there and claim it was all a trick, all an elaborate prank. But where's your proof? No, you'd have to examine the machine if you wanted to prove it, but then it would all be over. My beautiful hypothesis would be laid bare. I mean, the indignity of it. It's clear that you drew the plans for the experiment, but you didn't actually build it. It's quite conceivable that you were duped, Professor. If you'll just let me, I can prove. Barrick. He was tricked. It was the Asman and the engineer who were running a scam. Yes. I'll cooperate. I'll do whatever you say. I swear it. So please. Ensure the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act is adhered to and protect my creation. Oh my god, he's gonna be drinking now. Ugh, what's gonna be happening now? Pray forgive the discourtesy of filling my hallowed chalice at this critical juncture. We just had it. We were about to win, and this idiot professor just ruined it all. Here's to my learned Nipponese friend. What? And his upcoming attempt to clarify the defense's position in the light of the accused's confession. Do you intend to formally assert that the experiment was nothing more than a conjuring trick? Because the moment you do, the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act that protects the professor's invention will cease to apply. The prosecution will then demand a rigorous examination of the machinery involved in order to establish the truth. However, if you acknowledge that the machine is genuine and instrumental in the victim's murder, any chance of investigating will be crushed, and the confidentiality of the professor's hypothesis preserved. Well, counsel, what is the defense's official position on this matter? What Professor Hairbrayne, my client, actually asked of me was to prove that the explosion on stage was an accident and protect the secrecy of his hypothesis. But there's no way to do that without implying the professor's guilt. Do I protect my client's life by asserting his innocence, or do I uphold my client's request, but see him condemned? Either way, I can't avoid betraying his trust. You've been silent long enough. Isn't talking your trade, my learned friend? Or has all knowledge of English escaped your confused Nipponese mind? Wow, this guy. Mr. Naruhodo, there's no escape here. I have to make a choice. But it's an impossible one. I have to give up on something, but what? The defense asserts that the defendant's instantaneous kinesis machine was in fact a trick. It was a trick. It's our job as a lawyer to find him not guilty and defend him. He's innocent. He was tricked himself. He was scammed. It was a trick. Ah. No, I can't say it. My client placed his faith in me. I just can't let him down. What must I give up on is not the question you have to ask yourself here. It's what can I protect? Hello again, Mr. Naruhodo. It's been far too long. What? Susato-san? But what are you... Wait, how is she here right now? My first Susato takedown in 6 months. There'll be time to talk later, Mr. Naruhodo. For now, we must concentrate on the task at hand. Which is working out not what I have to give up on, but what can I protect? Professor Hairbrayne. Ah, yes? Yesterday you told me that science is the pursuit of truth. Well, my job is to pursue the truth too. Yes, of course. And personally, I believe that you didn't stab Mr. Asman. I think you've come to realize something yourself too, haven't you? That your experiment and the machine you build with the victim are questionable. The truth behind that is what we must both pursue now. So, you finally opened your eyes. What? And as for you, Albert, you can't ignore this any longer. Ah. Having heard my learned friend's assertion, don't you have something to say? But Barrack, Lord Van Zeeks? Gosh, I've never heard him speak that way before. What's going on here? In truth, there is one thing, something I remember that's of relevance. What? On the day it happened, just before I began the experiment, I saw a man near the stage. A man holding that crossbow. I beg your pardon. Professor, did the man have any distinguishing features? What did he look like? Taller than me, and thinner than me, with straight hair, straighter and whiter than mine. Let me see. One less than me to a monocle, a rather stylish black monocle. But one thing in particular will help to positively identify the man, you see. I know him very well. After all, he's the engineer who built my invention. I knew it. I knew it was the engineer. What? He built the machine. That's right. Mr. Asman introduced him to me a year ago. He's a man by the name of Enoch Drebber. Enoch Drebber. Does this name mean something? Members of the jury seem flustered. Not a name any scientist wishes to hear. The man's an abomination. Not a name any conjurer wishes to hear either. Who is this guy? What on earth is he? I'm afraid this isn't the first tale of this nature that I've heard in scientific circles in connection with that name. There's talk of other flamboyant experiments that turn out to be nothing but stage trickery in the end. Obviously, the rascal is after the government's research grant money. When magicians are in need of money, I have heard of them resorting to these underhand tactics. Some acquaintances of mine with experience of such things have mentioned Enoch Drebber's name before. The man is both an engineer and a magician. Yes, we're dealing with an unparalleled confidence trickster here. That's Enoch Drebber for you. Wow. And the professor didn't know who this guy was? Like, do some research into who's building your machine. I mean, damn, you're a scientist. So, it's true then. My invention, my great machine, it was just a grand illusion. Considering what we've just heard about Mr. Drebber's character, I'm sorry to say that sounds increasingly likely. Even though no one else believed it, I wanted to. I wanted to believe that machine would function exactly as my hypothesis predicted, which is why you were so opposed to it being investigated, I presume. I knew that if the machine was examined in detail, its construction would give away my hypothesis. Obviously, I didn't want that to happen, but at the same time, I knew that if it was found to be nothing more than a trick, than a work of deception, then everything I'd worked towards, all my research, all my dreams, my whole life would be over. I was terrified at the prospect. So you really had no idea then, did you? About the true nature of the machine that was built, and the true nature of Mr. Drebber. I never questioned anything. I didn't want to question it. It's entirely possible that Mr. Asman and Mr. Drebber were working together to use you as a means of fraudulently acquired the research grant money. Like I said a bunch of times, it was a scam. They tricked the professor. The guy was a gang boss, and then the gang boss hired the scammer. When I announced my invention to the crowds that day, it was the finest moment of my career. I pulled all the levers and turned all the dials in exactly the way Drebber had described. When the smoke suddenly started billowing out, I panicked. I didn't know what was happening. But I really don't know how the whole illusion was made to work. I don't know anything anymore. Let me confirm one final point with you, Professor. Do you now consent to the prosecution submitting the necessary paperwork to release your invention from the protection afforded by the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act? Yes, please go ahead. I'm very sorry. The professor himself is a victim as well. He was scammed. It would appear that we shall have to suspend proceedings for the remainder of the day now. No! No, you declare a not guilty verdict at this point. The trial is over. It's like, we've proven that the professor couldn't have been the one to do it. And so, you know, this is the problem with Ace Attorney, is that basically when you're at trial in the Ace Attorney games and you prove that your client, the defendant, couldn't have done it, the judge basically then at that point is like, well, who else could have done it? And basically they never end the trial until you find the real culprit. That's very unrealistic, because in real trial, it's not the point of trial is to find the defendant either guilty or not guilty. That's the whole point of trial. And it's not if there's some other person involved, that's a separate matter. That's for another trial. If you have the wrong guy and you prove he had nothing to do with it, you release him and end the trial. When he's not guilty, it's over. So we've proven pretty much at this point that the professor is not guilty. I mean, I guess Barrick's argument would be that they want to investigate the machine further, but the moment that they find out that it's a scam, that the machine wasn't real, it was all fake, it was all a plot, and the moment that we prove the guy was in the balloon and not on stage, then it's over. There's no way to prove that the professor did it. It's over at that point. So, you know, this is, you know, I guess trial's gonna be going for another day now. Lord Van Zeeks. My lord, the court has newly been made aware of another party whose involvement in this matter is critical. Yes, Mr. Drebber. Gather information about the man. If possible, I should like him served with subpoena. With pleasure, my lord. Now, counsel for the defense. Yes, my lord. When we reconvene, I shall be looking for one thing, and one thing alone from you. Evidence that the defendant is innocent of the crime for which he presently stands accused. Well, the moment you prove that the guy was in the balloon, that's enough evidence. He couldn't have stabbed him. I understand. Good. In that case, this court is adjourned until tomorrow morning. October, 1:36 p.m. The Old Bailey. Defendant's, antechamber. Mr. Naruhodo. Yes? I'm so sorry. I was wrong. You were right. I tricked you. You trusted me. I dragged you into my mess. Oh, how did it ever come to this? I'm so sorry. Did you really have no idea, Professor, about what Mr. Drebber was really up to, I mean? About what he was really constructing? Naturally. That machine was the embodiment of my hypothesis, of all my hopes and dreams. I had complete faith in it. Alright, in that case, I won't say any more. Now, sadly, the murder accusation against you still stands, so we must do as much investigation as we can before the trial resumes tomorrow. Well, thank you for doing so much for me. What is Susato doing here? I'm so sorry for arriving late this morning, Mr. Naruhodo. Arriving late? Didn't you receive my postcard? I wanted to let you know when I'd arrive. Postcard? What postcard? I hid it from you, Runo, so it will be a surprise. Well, did it work? I was surprised alright, especially when she threw me to the ground. Oh dear, I'm so sorry. I was just so happy to see you again, that it sort of slipped out. Maybe we could stick to more traditional displays of emotion in future. Susie's train was late into London Victoria this morning, you see? But we made the coachman really whip the horses hard, so she didn't miss the whole trial. I was watching from the gallery for a while, but in the end, I'm afraid I couldn't contain myself. Well, I'm glad you didn't. Oh. Having you at my side in court gives me the strength I need to win. So, I'm, delighted to see you, back in London. Oh, you're too kind, Mr. Naruhodo. I'm delighted to be here. I hope I can continue to be of service to you. Of course. So, what's brought you back? Did Professor Mikotoba not protest? Let's save all that conversation for when we're back at home, shall we? You know, I've made one of my most special blends ever for this special occasion. Oh, Iris, how wonderful. I can't wait. Susato-san was back in London. It's hard to describe how happy that made me feel at the time, but despite my elation, our tale was about to take yet another extraordinary turn. So I guess we're gonna have another investigation and then another final parts of the trial coming up. So I guess we'll leave it off here. We'll always leave it off on the to be continued. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this. And if you guys enjoyed this series, please do drop a like. I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care, everyone.